everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today's video, if you see something moving behind me, Gary is on the bed. I'm not sure if you can actually see him or not. Today's video we are going to be talking about whether bearded dragons make good pets. Of course I have one and you know I love him, so of course I'm going to be biased and say of course they do, and generally speaking, yeah, of course they do. They're easy to look after, they're not super expensive once you have the initial setup, they are quite social, their temperament's really good, they live a decent amount of time but not like super long lifespan. We're not talking like 30 years or whatever. That can be, you know, well over that for certain kinds of snakes and tortoises and things like that. And they are a really hardy, fairly responsible child or supervised child friendly pet to keep as well. Most animals you can say make good pets, from really big snakes to really tiny mice. However, it depends on your circumstances whether these guys make good pets for you. When we're talking about bearded dragons, all of the pros that I mentioned are fantastic, but there are a few things that you definitely need to consider before you get one. Their tank size has to be fairly decent. So when I bought Gary, for example, I went ahead and bought the minimum size, which I believe is a 4 foot by 2 foot. I think that's what the measurements are. I will try and leave some information in the description box. I'll pop it along here for you, because I didn't want to have to repurchase any equipment when he grew up a little bit. I got him when he was about, I want to say about 4 months old. So he was still a baby and he was still fairly small. I believe like his whole body minus the tail, but including the head, was like palm size-ish. Obviously he's significantly bigger now, but I actually went straight for the biggest tank that was the minimum size for the adult, which is a fairly decent size. It does take up about half the length of the wall of my bedroom. So things like tank size and stuff are things that you do need to consider before you are going to get even an animal that is fairly beginner friendly. I feel like that's not the right term to use. I know Emily Rose, who also has a fantastic channel, I'll link it up here, she kind of mentioned that she's not such a fan of the term beginner friendly either, because I kind of feel like beginner pet, just like she mentioned in one of her videos, I don't really like the idea of you trialing your lack of experience in looking after a new reptile on a like beginner friendly pet. You're kind of using it as a guinea pig. I feel like if you really want something and you've done enough research, and I mean really research things, then you should just kind of get the pet that you're really interested in, rather than just getting one for the sake of it being like fairly beginner friendly. Hello, little man. These little guys are a fairly decent size, and therefore they will need a fairly decent sized tank. I think my whole setup, including my lights and things, cost me about £300, that's UK pounds, which was fairly expensive. But when you think these guys can live sort of between 10 and 15 years, just depends on, you know, how well you keep them and all that kind of stuff. For that period of time, that doesn't seem that bad. As I said, I went for the bigger tank straight away, so I wouldn't have to replace it, therefore obviously adding cost. Depends just how you want to do it. If you're getting a smaller dragon and you cannot afford to spend that much on a larger enclosure straight off, you can always pick them up secondhand. That's something I would have a look at. Look at places like Craigslist, eBay, things like that, maybe where you can buy things secondhand if you don't want to get brand new, or maybe start off with a tank that is appropriate for the size of your bearded dragon, but just be aware that you will have to replace it later. Only the size of the tank, but you do have to think about your lifestyle. These guys do need attention every day. It's really unfair for you to kind of just leave them in the tank for weeks at a time. That is the kind of way to make your dragons not used to your hands, not used to being around humans, potentially be kind of aggressive towards you. Although their temperament is really good, obviously the more time you spend with your dragon, being able to see you, hear you, letting them run around you, you know, sitting with you while you're watching TV, handling them, hand feeding them, all those kinds of things. Gary's going mental in my lap. the nicer of a temperament your dragon's going to have. Gary spends a lot of time with me, but I also travel a lot for work. I have maybe 6 or 7 days out of the month where I might be away on a job or something, and that's where, if you know that you have a job or you're doing school a lot or things like that, you do need to make sure that you have someone that can come in and look after these guys. They do need attention every day, not just social, but also for their food. They will need live insects and some fresh veggies as well. Babies tend to eat more protein, and the bigger they get, kind of the older they get, the more sort of greens and stuff they should be eating, and then supplement with some protein as well. If you don't like bugs, these are not the pets for you. Most reptiles will require some form of live food, whether that be feeder insects or kind of pinky mice, things like that. Obviously, if you're keeping snakes and stuff, dietary requirements do vary, but these guys do require live insects, preferably. You can use the freeze-dried ones and things, but obviously live food is much better. Also provide some enrichment for them if they get to chase them around, if you're not just hand feeding or tongue feeding. And they do require some fresh veggies and stuff as well. Another thing that I think is really important to mention is whether you have accounted for vet's bills. Obviously, exotic animals are kind of a specialist area, and although most vets will take animals like these because they are getting more and more common, I really advise you to get some kind of insurance or something in case anything does go wrong, and make sure that you are looking for a veterinarian service that is specifically designed for exotics. These guys have totally different care to a lot of the kind of general animals like cats, dogs, rabbits, those types of things, like the cute fluffy types, and therefore it really does require specialist attention. The equivalent would be like me needing heart surgery and going to a general surgeon who does a bit of everything, when actually you'd rather see a specialist. You want the best service for your pet when they're sick, therefore it's really important that you find somewhere close to you that you know can totally handle exotic creatures. A lot of this stuff is really just about being a responsible pet owner in general, just making sure that you can afford the things that your pet needs, making sure that you're prepared to do what's best for them, and also making sure you have the time that they need from you to provide them with enrichment, like spending time with you, being let out of the tank, running around and things like that. Overall, these guys make absolutely fantastic pets. I do think they are beginner friendly. They are fairly easy to look after if you do your research. I really implore you to go and do your research properly. That doesn't just mean going and talking to a pet employee who's going to be, you know, who's instructed to sell you a certain tank size and tells you it's fine. That is not the kind of care you want to be giving to your dragon. Definitely go and check out some reptile forums, people that breed these animals, people that have kept them for years, people that have had more than one, people that have had their dragon for a lot of years. They're going to have encountered lots of different problems that they've had to overcome, and they're going to have lots of experience with different things that can go wrong, or things that they think that they have worked better than things that were previously suggested to them by people who had less experience, or, you know, the guys in pet stores, things like that. A lot of the time what is recommended to you in a pet store is not actually the best option for your animal. So as I just said, make sure that you go away and do your own research. Don't just look at like one pet care sheet on the internet. Make sure you talk to people who keep these guys themselves as well. Do your own research and make sure that you know as much as humanly possible about these guys before you go adopting one or buying one from somewhere else. Overall, these guys do make fantastic pets. They are fairly child friendly, as I said before, obviously supervised. They're fairly hardy, they're pretty easy to look after. Their lights and heat bulbs and things, as long as you've got the correct ones, can be set up on timers and things. They're not too expensive to feed. As I said earlier, you can kind of buy these things in bulk on the internet for much cheaper. The initial setup is a little expensive, but once you're done, you're done. A lot of these things can also be picked up secondhand, as I explained earlier, but overall these guys are full of personality, they're a decent size, their care is not too complicated, they do really tolerate being handled really well, they are exciting to watch. They are really kind of interactive little beings, and they definitely would make a brilliant family pet. Obviously I have one. I would also like to get another one at some stage, and rescue one, but me and Gary are a very happy little pairing for now, and I would absolutely recommend them as pets. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. Please do comment down below if you've got a bearded dragon. Tell me what their name is. I feel like you're gonna jump away. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you're not part of this happy little animal family. And me and Big Gaz will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.